Section 36 of the Wonderful Adventures of Nils. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Reading by Lars Rolander. The Wonderful Adventures of Nils by Selma Lagerlöf. Translated by Velma Swanston Howard. Westbottom and Lappland. The Five Scouts. Once at Skansen the boy had sat under the steps at Bollnäs cottage and had overheard Clement Larsson and the old Laplander talk about Norrland. Both agreed that it was the most beautiful part of Sweden. Clement thought that the southern part was the best, while the Laplander favoured the northern part. As they argued, it became plain that Clement had never been farther north than Härnösand. The Laplander laughed at him for speaking with such assurance of places that he had never seen. "I think I shall have to tell you a story, Clement, to give you some idea of Lapland, since you have not seen it," volunteered the Laplander. "It shall not be said of me that I refuse to listen to a story," retorted Clement, and the old Laplander began. "It once happened that the birds who live down in Sweden, south of the great Sameland, thought that they were overcrowded there and suggested moving northward. They came together to consider the matter. The young and eager birds wished to start at once, but the older and wiser ones passed a resolution to send scouts to explore the new country. 'Let each of the five great bird families send out a scout,' said the old wise birds, 'to learn if there is room for us all up there, food and hiding places.' 5 intelligent and capable birds were immediately appointed by the five great bird families. The forest birds selected a grouse, the field birds a lark, the sea birds a gull, the fresh water birds a loon, and the cliff birds a snow sparrow. When the 5 chosen ones were ready to start, the grouse, who was the largest and most commanding, said: 'There are great stretches of land ahead. If we travel together, it will be long before we cover all the territory that we must explore. If, on the other hand, we travel singly, each one exploring his special portion of the country, the whole business can be accomplished in a few days.' The other scouts thought the suggestion a good one and agreed to act upon it. It was decided that the grouse should explore the midlands, the lark was to travel to the eastward, the sea gull still farther east, where the land bordered on the sea, while the loon should fly over the territory west of the midlands, and the snow sparrow to the extreme west. In accordance with this plan, the 5 birds flew over the whole Northland. Then they turned back and told the assembly of birds what they had discovered. The gull, who had travelled along the sea coast, spoke first. 'The north is a fine country,' he said. 'The sounds are full of fish, and there are points and islands without number. Most of these are uninhabited, and the birds will find plenty of room there. The humans do a little fishing and sailing in the sounds, but not enough to disturb the birds. If the sea birds follow my advice, they will move north immediately.' When the gull had finished, the lark, who had explored the land back from the coast, spoke. 'I don't know what the gull means by his islands and points,' said the lark. 'I have travelled only over great fields and flowery meadows. I have never before seen a country crossed by some large streams. Their shores are dotted with homesteads, and at the mouth of the rivers are cities. But for the most part the country is very desolate. If the field birds follow my advice, they will move north immediately.' After the lark came the grouse, who had flown over the midlands." "I know neither what the lark means with his meadows, nor the gull with his islands and points," said he. "I have seen only pine forests on this whole trip. There are also many rushing streams and great stretches of moss grown swamp land, but all that is not river or swamp is forest. If the forest birds follow my advice, they will move north immediately." After the grouse came the loon, who had explored the borderland to the west. "I don't know what the grouse means by his forests, nor do I know where the eyes of the lark and the gull could have been," remarked the loon. "There's hardly any land up there, only big lakes. Between beautiful shores glisten clear blue mountain lakes, which pour into roaring waterfalls. If the fresh water birds follow my advice, they will move north immediately." The last speaker was the snow sparrow, who had flown along the western boundary.
"I don't know what the loon means by his lakes, nor do I know what countries the grouse, the lark, and the gull can have seen,"
he said.
"I found one vast mountainous region up north. I didn't run across any fields or any pine forests, but peak after peak and highlands. I have seen ice fields and snow, and mountain brooks with water as white as milk. No farmers, no cattle, no homesteads have I seen, but only Lapps and reindeer and huts meet my eyes. If the cliff birds follow my advice, they will move north immediately."
When the 5 scouts had presented their reports to the assembly, they began to call one another liars, and were ready to fly at each other to prove the truth of their arguments. But the old and wise birds who had sent them out listened to their accounts with joy, and calmed their fighting propensities. "You mustn't quarrel among yourselves," they said. "We understand from your reports that up north there are large mountain tracts, a big lake region, great forest lands, a wide plain, and a big group of islands. This is more than we have expected, more than many a mighty kingdom can boast within its borders." THE MOVING LANDSCAPE Saturday, June 18th. The boy had been reminded of the old Laplander's story because he himself was now travelling over the country of which he had spoken. The eagle told him that the expanse of coast which spread beneath them was Westbottom, and that the blue ridges far to the west were in Lapland. Only to be once more seated comfortably on Gorgo's back after all that he had suffered during the forest fire was a pleasure. Besides, they were having a fine trip. The flight was so easy that at times it seemed as if they were standing still in the air. The eagle beat and beat his wings, without appearing to move from the spot. On the other hand, everything under them seemed in motion. The whole earth and all things on it moved slowly southward. The forests, the fields, the fences, the rivers, the cities, the islands, the sawmills, all were on the march. The boy wondered whither they were bound. Had they grown tired of standing so far north and wished to move toward the south? Amid all the objects in motion, there was only one that stood still. That was a railway train. It stood directly under them, for it was with the train as with Gorgo it could not move from the spot. The locomotive sent forth smoke and sparks. The clatter of the wheels could be heard all the way up to the boy, but the train did not seem to move. The forests rushed by, the flag station rushed by, fences and telegraph poles rushed by, but the train stood still. A broad river with a long bridge came toward it, but the river